Hello and welcome back to episode 3 of the Christanbulian Let's Build a Fantasy Village. In today's episode, we're going to be building a tavern for the town. Now, the first thing you might notice is that the texture pack looks a little bit different. That's because I realized that I am, of course, an idiot, and I had the texture pack installed not incorrectly, but only halfway. So I fixed that and everything looks a lot better. Now, in today's episode, we're going to be building the tavern on these two original place marks that I put down when I was making the outline of the town. So we already built the botanist tower and the guards outpost, and I felt that the citizens of the town were going to want somewhere that they could get some food and a nice drink. So what better idea than a tavern? Honestly, the actual reason that I thought we'd build a tavern is not for any kind of inspiration of wanting to build a tavern itself. I actually just wanted to build a cool building with a pedway in between it, or a bridge on the second level, basically, a walkway. And this was the perfect spot to do it. I already had two landmarks, two plots laid out that were identical in shape and size and directly across from each other. So my inspiration was actually just to build something with a pedway, and sometimes that's how inspiration works. Sometimes it's a simple idea like that. The tavern came after the thought. I just decided what kind of building does the town need. It's a fantasy style, medieval style town. Tavern. So, as far as the actual build goes, I do use most of the same themes as I've done in the rest of the town, and that's going to be the case with every building. However, to make the tavern its own unique flavor and personality, I've used birch wood logs, as well as these really cool textured paneled walls. So by updating the texture pack, not only does it make things look a lot better, it also gives me the ability to use connected textures in Minecraft, which those paneled walls, which I removed because they were at the wrong height, utilize, and they give a really cool fantasy medieval feel to a building. So you see me finishing the framework of the tavern with those birch wood logs, and it really makes the building pop. Actually, it makes it pop a lot more when it goes alongside that dark wood plank that I've used in the other buildings. So now that I'm at the right level, I've been building all of my second stories, or my roofs, to my first story buildings at 5 blocks high. I go in and I add those textured panels back in, and I throw down some windows so that the town citizens who are enjoying food and drink in the tavern can also enjoy the view of the town. We start to lay down some of the dark wood planks across the pedway so that there's an accessible route across to the other side of the tavern. And one thing that's nice about this build is, aside from minor things like the stairwell on one side, it's mirrored on either side. So that means I can work on one side, get a feel for how I want the building to look, and then just copy that entire part of the build over to the other side of the building. So it means that I get a really dramatic and large-scale building with actually a lot less effort than it looks like it took to build. So I'm going in, and now that I have the framework and supports of those birchwood logs, I'm filling in the empty walls with the paneled wall and dark wood planks, throwing in windows in between where we need them, and just extending those panels there to make your eye line flow upwards with the building. And throwing down some glowstone lamps. As we all know, that's kind of my thing. And then going up and topping it off with more dark wood planks. Now, I originally thought that this was where I was going to go with the roof, using dark wood planks to mimic the same color that I had in the bottom of the tavern. And I'm just going back and mirroring what I did on one side to the other. And it looks good, honestly. we've got the main shape down, and it's got a nice feel to it with those light birchwood supports and the lighter paneled walls. However, I do go back and change the roof. So back there, I'm just doing the same thing. I'm throwing up the same theme around all sides of the building, adding walls. Now I go down to do a little bit of work underneath the pedway. I was mainly trying to add just detail and dimension, as I always do with small add-ons, but I also wanted to add some lighting underneath here because this is the entryway to the tavern. So I'm toying around with glowstone lamps, but because that pedway isn't very wide, I didn't have a lot of room to work with. So I wanted to do something that would make the glowstone lamps not stand out and look like they were just kind of thrown there for lighting, but look like they're actually a lamp or a lantern. So what I did is I framed the edge, the underneath edge of the pedway with those light wood stairs rather, and it looked really good. So I decided I was actually going to take those and apply them to the roof as well. I like the fact now that I have multiple colors of wood throughout this building. So I finished off the outline of the roof, and I thought I was going to leave it like that. So I went down and I added some more grass in, started working on the sills underneath those windows. So I throw up some upside down cobble on one side, and then I realize, oh, why don't I try it with wood? And again, that's a great thing about this build being mirrored, is I can try two different things and I can see them both at the same time to figure out which I prefer. The light wood stood out a little bit too much for me, and at the end of the day, so did the cobble, so I changed it to dark wood stairs and lined them with some plants. And as usual, it was a little too symmetrical, so I removed the middle plant and replaced it with something else. And now, we want the tavern to be an inviting place for the citizens of the town and also outside visitors who may be passing through. So I moved down to work on the outside, the exterior. And it's important to note that in a build like this, any kind of model build, you shouldn't only focus on your main components of your build. So in this case, the main component is the tavern. But the tavern is amplified by its ambient surroundings. So I always try to spend a little bit of time, and I think you've probably noticed it in the other two builds, I always try to spend a little bit of time creating an atmosphere around the building. So for the tavern, it's a meeting place, it's sort of a focal point, at least for this area of the town. It's somewhere where people are going to spend some time and meet with people. So we throw down some benches out front and add a little bit of personality and warmth with a garden, fences, some shrubbery. And I'm just going to the other side because I decided that I wanted to continue mirroring the build. So I extend the road out there. Add a little bit more grass. And then we lay down a couple more benches just so we have the tavern mirrored on either side, because I'm really liking the way that that looks. Now, I realized that I did not like how flat the roof was. It was intentional originally, it was my idea originally, but I thought that it looked too flat against the skyline. So we go up and add another layer of the light wood stairs. And I thought it looked a bit too plain, so I started to top it off just with an outside frame of cobble wall. And as soon as I did that, I thought, oh, no. I've got to do something else with this. This looks too cool. I've got to add to it. And so this is where I had the idea to make the roof of the tavern basically an outdoor patio or a balcony, so that in nice weather, or in bad weather, if there's some really hardy citizens in this town who don't mind the elements, they could go up to the roof to enjoy their drink, their food, or just sit and enjoy the view of the town. So I sort of mimic the feel that I had at the top of the Botanist Tower, and I line the top of the balcony with some shrubbery, with some hedges. And on the roof there, which is the top of the pedway, we line either side with some lamps to provide some ambient lighting to the roof. Step back and look at the build. When I decide, I want to take a minute to decide what I want to do. And again, the same problem as I had on the original roof. It looked too flat, so we add in a couple more levels to add dimension to those canopied roofs. And now the tavern has really started to take shape. Always, I get a basic shape down for my builds, and I think, wow, okay, now that is the feel for this building. And as I start to add in details, as I start to flesh out the personality a little bit more, I go, okay, no, this needs more. And I almost always end up adding another layer or a whole new feature to builds that give them their final personality and feel. And that's exactly what happened on the roof of the tavern here. So I'm still just toying around with different configurations of blocks and stairs, height, width, so that I can make sure that I get those canopied roofs to look just the way I want them to, and to make sure they look balanced against the lower roof. And there we go, I think I've got it. So I'm heading in to add some detail, some seats for the patrons of the tavern who are enjoying the balcony and enjoying the weather and the view. So I'm mimicking the same style of bench seats that I used on the road outside the tavern, which is just some sandstone brick stairs. And I have item frames on the outside for armrests. And I'm putting down some purple wool rug. Again, it's those little details that you wouldn't necessarily notice if they weren't called out to you, but they all lend to make a build look more dynamic and real. Throwing down some crates that we can use as tables, and then adding some final detail to the tables with some cups and some candles. And as we switch perspective here, we see I'm just going around to the outside and mimicking some of the details that I had put on the front of the building. Again, as I mentioned in the previous build, you've always got to remember that you have to address all dimensions of your build, not just that front face view that you're used to looking at. It's not just the entrance of the building. That building has 3 other sides that we've got to look at and make look just as pretty. So I mimic the garden that I had in the front by going around and adding shrubs and fencing to both sides of the building. I don't do it to the back because I do have a plan for the back. I'm going to add some massive chimney stacks on either side of the tavern. But for now, we're going in, we're bone mealing to give it a little bit of randomness to make sure that it feels natural. And then we move to the back where I'm going to start building those giant chimney stacks. So I break holes in the back of both sides of the tavern where the fireplace would be. And I just start fleshing out a random shape. I intentionally left gaps and grooves because I didn't want the chimney stacks to just be square jutes up into the sky. And I intended to go back, and I do, but I intended to go back and add some cobble walls into those grooves like I did over on the guard's tower. And we'll see that at the end of the build. So I'm topping off the chimney stack with some netherrack, because I always use netherrack in fireplaces in Minecraft because it's easy and it's cheap. You don't see it when you light it on fire, and it continues to burn. Or so I thought. We'll see in a little bit that either something has changed in a recent Minecraft update, or there was something buggy going on with the server that I was playing on. So anyway, I go to the other side of the tavern, and I just start mirroring the chimney stack, identical to the first one that I made. So remember, I've got some netherrack blazing on the other side there, and I'm adding it in as I go. You see me there, putting the netherrack down on the second floor of this side of the tavern. I light it up there, and you can see the smoke billowing out. So I've got netherrack on the ground floor with a fire, on the second floor with a fire, and then even on the balcony we've got a really cool fireplace there where the tavern's patrons can just enjoy a roaring fire while they're up on the top enjoying the view. And right about now I'm going to stop talking because you'll see what I was talking about. Yeah, that happened. It's lucky that it started raining, because otherwise I wouldn't have gone to Toggle Downfall and see this. And I gotta admit, I was panicking at this point. Luckily, I got the situation under control, but the build was a bit of a mess. Now again, bright side of the build being mirrored is it wasn't too hard to go back and fix it. So here's the damage. I did go back and fix it. I'm not going to show you that. But why don't we just take some snapshots to see what I did. There you have it, the tavern. Now, like I said, I'm probably going to make a couple other pubs or taverns, watering holes in the town, but for now, this is our nice tavern. So, I hope you enjoyed this build, and until next time, bye!